over. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा रीडिंग फ्रॉम श्रीमद् भागवतम by his divine grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 5, Vidura talks with Maitreya. So currently we are at the final section of this chapter, where we are reading prayers of the elemental demigods. By reading Bhagavatam, we have such access. So these are not just demigods, these are the elemental demigods, right? So Brahma's birth is yet to take place, and these are the demigods who are in charge of all the elements, and therefore they are called as elemental demigods. And we have access to the prayers that elemental demigods are offering to the Supreme Lord upon creation of the different elements. So this is the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahma is yet to be born, right? Text 42. यच्छ्रद्धया श्रुतवत्या च भक्त्या समृज्यमाने हृदये वधाय ज्ञानेन वैराग्यबलेन धीरा व्रजेम तदङ्गाग्रिसरोजपीठम्. Translation.
Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge. And on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. Purport. The miracles of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion are so great that no other process can compare to it. The minds of materialistic persons are so disturbed that it is almost impossible for them to search after the supreme truth by personal regulative endeavors. But even such materialistic men, with a little eagerness for hearing about the transcendental name, fame, qualities, etc., can surpass all other methods of attaining knowledge and detachment. The conditioned soul is attached to the bodily conception of the self, and therefore he is in ignorance. Culture of self knowledge can bring about detachment from material affection, and without such detachment, there is no meaning to knowledge. The most stubborn attachment for material enjoyment is sex life. One who is attached to sex life is to be understood as devoid of knowledge. Knowledge must be followed by detachment. That is the way of self realization. These two essentials for self realization, knowledge and detachment, become manifest very quickly if one performs devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord. The word dhira is very significant in this connection. A person who is not disturbed even in the presence of cause of disturbance is called dhira. Shri Yamunacharya says, since my heart has been overwhelmed by the devotional service of the Lord Krishna, I cannot even think of sex life. And if thoughts of sex come upon me, I at once feel disgust. A devotee of the Lord becomes an elevated dhira by the simple process of meditating in eagerness on the lotus feet of the Lord. Devotional service entails being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and following his instruction in regard to hearing about the Lord. Such a bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. The improvement in knowledge and detachment can be perceived by devotees as an actual experience. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu strongly recommends this process of hearing from a bona fide devotee. And by following this process, one can achieve the highest result, conquering all other methods. Hare Krishna.
So here the elemental demigods, they further continue to pray. Yat Shraddhaya Shruttavatya cha Bhaktya. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion. So hearing Shruttavatya cha Bhaktya. By eagerness and devotion, what happens? One at once becomes enlightened with knowledge. And on the strength of detachment, one becomes purified. And thus, one takes shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. So, by taking shelter of the Lord's lotus feet, hearing about the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and knowledge, one at once becomes purified and then detached, and also one naturally takes shelter of the Supreme Lord. So, they are praying to the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead upon the creation. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, these are the miracles of meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion, that these cannot be compared with any other process. Otherwise, the mind of a materialistic person is diverted in too many things. Shrotavya Rajendra, Nrunam Santi Sahasrashah. Apaschatam Atmatattvam. He has no time, the life just goes on and on in such a big way that one has no time to stop, to think, to reflect. Just life is like samsara, bhava pravaha just continues very fast. But when one hangs on to the lotus feet of the Lord, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then there are miraculous results. Prabhupada says, generally, the conditioned soul is greatly captivated by the bodily conception of life, and it is out of ignorance. And therefore, when he want to look for the rasa in that bodily condition, that rasa primarily comes in the conditioned life with uh, the sense gratification. And therefore, the material world is also therefore referred as Maithunagar, where the living entity is just caught to the material world by the false understanding that I am the enjoyer, I am the exploiter of my body and somebody else's body. So this is the understanding, and this is very tightly gripping a living entity in the material world. Why this is the condition? Because the original Adi Rasa in the spiritual world gets reflected in the material world as the sense gratification. So this is whatever is the topmost in the spiritual world. Urdhva mudam adashakam ashvattham prahuravyayam chandam siyasya paranani urdhva moolam. Just like there is a tree on the bank of a river, the topmost fruit of the tree in the river, in the reflection, will appear as the bottommost fruit. Right. So, because Adiras is the topmost in the spiritual world, when it is reflected in the material world, it becomes the cause of great binding. And therefore, Dhira is a person who is not bewildered by this, the exchange of sense gratification. And Prabhupada Prabhupada quotes here Yamunacharya, very famous prayer of Yamunacharya. Yannavadhimata cheta Krishna padara vinde udyatam rantumasit. And then he Srushtu Nishtivanam cha. That's how he conclude Yamunacharya. That I even spit at the thought. Again, this has to be, one has to realize this. This has to be gradual and in the due course of time. Srila Prabhupada was so practical in his, in his personal counseling. One disciple, Srila Prabhupada, one disciple, they were staying in the temple because earlier ISKCON, everybody stayed in the temple. There was congregation means ISKCON means full time, and full time means temple. That was the understanding. And one disciple, Srila Prabhupada told, the husband wife, he said that you can kiss your wife regularly because you are a grihastha, and you cannot be so detached in the grihastha ashram. So whenever we talk of the detachment, Bhagavatam is a literature of detachment, right? One has to realize this. And this dose of detachment has to be taken gradually, and one has to take it in a way that is, you know, compatible with one's ongoing spiritual advancement. Okay, age appropriate, what we call it as. Further, Srila Prabhupada explains devotional service means being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master. So today we are going to have the initiation vows for some devotees who are going to take initiation this week. So devotional service begins with initiation from a bona fide spiritual master and regularly hearing from him, and hearing with, just like these elemental demigods are saying, hearing with eagerness and devotion. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended this process very strongly. One has to hear from the bona fide spiritual master, and the result of hearing is there is advancement in the knowledge, detachment, which will lead to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 43. विश्वस्य जन्मस्थितिसंयमार्थे कृतावतारस्य पदाम्बुजं ते व्रजेम सर्वे शरणं यदीश स्मृतं व्रजे स्मृतं प्रयच्छत् अभयं स्वपुंसाम्. Translation.
Translation: O Lord, you assume incarnations for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation, and therefore we all take shelter of your lotus feet because they always award remembrance and courage to your devotees. Purport: for the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestations, there are three incarnations: Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, Lord Shiva. They are the controllers or masters of the three modes of material nature which cause the phenomenal manifestation. Vishnu is the master of the mode of goodness, Brahma is the master of the mode of passion, and Maheshwara is the master of the mode of ignorance. There are different kinds of devotees according to the modes of nature. Persons in the mode of goodness worship Lord Vishnu, those in the mode of passion worship Lord Brahma, and those in the mode of ignorance worship Lord Shiva. All three of these deities are incarnations of the Supreme Lord Krishna because he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods directly refer to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and not to the different incarnations. The incarnation of Vishnu in the material world is, however, directly worshipped by the demigods. It is learned from various scriptures that the demigods approach Lord Vishnu in the ocean of milk and submit their grievances whenever there is some difficulty in the administration of universal affairs. Although they are incarnations of the Lord, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva worship Lord Vishnu, and thus they are also counted amongst the demigods and not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who worship Lord Vishnu are called demigods, and persons who do not do so are called asuras or demons. Vishnu always takes the part of the demigods, but Brahma and Shiva sometimes take the side of the demons. It is not that they become one in interest with them, but sometimes they do something in order to gain control over the demons. Hare Krishna.
So now these elemental demigods, they are praying, "Oh Lord, you assume the incarnations for creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. And therefore, we take shelter of your lotus feet, which always awards remembrance and courage to your devotees." In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, for creation, maintenance, and dissolution, the Lord takes incarnations as Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. So, for Lord Vishnu is the master of the mode of goodness. Just see, he's the master of the mode of goodness, not he is in the mode of goodness. Lord Vishnu is transcendental. Lord Brahma is the master of the mode of passion. Again, Lord Brahma is a pure devotee. Okay, he is also transcendental, pure, he also exists in Shuddha Sattva. But he is controlling the Rajoguna. And similarly, Lord Shiva, Maheshwara, he is the master of the mode of ignorance. So he is controlling the mode of ignorance. And accordingly, there are different kinds of personalities who are worshipping the Supreme Lord with different motives, with different under the different modes of material nature, and therefore they approach the Lord differently. Right. So we see that somebody is in the mode of goodness, generally they will approach the worshipping Lord Vishnu. Somebody is in the mode of passion, just like we see Hiranyakashipu and others. They will approach worshipping Lord Brahma. He wanted the control, expansion, controlling entire universe. And then we see Ravana. He wanted, the complete exploitation. He was worshipping Lord Shiva. And if there is sometimes a person, this is a very interesting question asked by Mother Parvati to Lord Shiva in Padma Puran. This comes. She says, "My dear Lord, my dear husband, that many times, most of the times, your worshippers are in the mode of ignorance. But what happens if somebody is worshipping you in the mode of goodness without any material motive?" And there, Lord Shiva gives a beautiful answer. He says that in their ears, I personally go and chant the holy names of Sri Hari and award them liberation. Okay, so this is the beautiful dialogue between, the husband, wife, Parvati and Lord Shiva. But this is how generally the worship takes place. Srila Prabhupada says, although on the level of Gunavatara, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are also considered, but they are not. They are considered in the category of demigods. And sometimes, just to vanquish the demons, they take side on the demons. Like we see that sometimes Lord Shiva is fighting with Lord Krishna, taking side of Banasura, or sometimes Lord Brahma is giving such benedictions to to his devotee Hiranyakashipu that Lord Vishnu has to chastise Brahmaji, saying that next time be careful when you are giving benedictions. So this is all the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they are taking shelter of the Lord. Text 44. यत्सानुबन्धे सति देहगेः ममाह इत्या ऊढं दुराग्रहाणां पुंसां सुदूरं वसतोऽपि पूर्यां भजेम तत्ते भगवन् पदाब्जम्. Translation.
O Lord, persons who are entangled in undesirable eagerness for the temporary body and kinsmen, and who are bound by the thoughts of mind and eye, are unable to see your lotus feet. Although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies, but let us take shelter of your lotus feet. Purport. The whole Vedic philosophy of life is that one should get rid of material engagement of gross and subtle bodies, which only cause one to continue in a condemned life of miseries. This material body continues as long as one is not detached from the false conception of lording it over material nature. The impetus for lording it over material nature is the sense of mind and I. I am the Lord of all that I survey. So many things I possess, and I shall possess more and more. Who can be richer than I and in wealth and education? I am the master and I am the God. Who else is there but me? All these ideas reflect the philosophy of Aham Mama, the conception that I am everything. Persons conducted by such a conception of life can never get liberation from material bondage. But even a person perpetually condemned to the miseries of material existence can get relief from the bondage if he simply agrees to hear only Krishna Katha. In this age of Kali, the process of hearing Krishna Katha is the most effective means to gain release from the unwanted family affection and thus find permanent freedom in life. The age of Kali is full of sinful reactions, and people are more and more addicted to the qualities of this age. But simply by hearing and chanting of Krishna Katha, one is sure to go back to Godhead. Therefore, people should be trained to hear only Krishna Katha by all means in order to get relief from all miseries.
Further, these demigods are praying, O Lords, person who are engaged in undesirable eagerness of the temporary body and the kinsmen are bound by the thoughts of aham mameti, and thus they are unable to see your lotus feet. And where are your lotus feet? Although your lotus feet are situated within their own bodies, but still they are unable to see those lotus feet, but we take shelter of your lotus feet. Okay, so again, the entire prayers are about, till now they are about the lotus feet of the Lord. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the whole Vedic philosophy is that one should get rid of the material engagement of gross and the subtle bodies. And according to Varna and Ashrama, one is in a particular situation, but as one is aging in one's life, one should be progressively becoming detached from the material engagement and should be more and more attached to the spiritual activities, devotional service to the Supreme God. Otherwise, one is caught up in the Maya jal of Aham Mameti. Aham Mameti means, where Bhagavad Gita, these verses are there, chapter 16. What are these verses? Asatyam apratishtam te jagadahuranishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kamahitukam. Not this one. Where they are saying,
Wagmaya.
Konyasti sadrusho mayaha. That Konyasti sadrusho mayaha. And then I will give in charity, I will do this, I will do that. And this is how the demoniac person, they think, idam adyam maya labdham imam prapse manoratham idam astidam apime bhavishyati punardhanam asau maya hatah shatru hanishye chapananapi ishwaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. Okay, so this is Adhyo Abhijanavan Asmi. I'm surrounded by so many powerful relatives. Konyasti Satrusho Maya, who is like me? Yakshe Dashyami Modishya. Iti Ajnana Vimohita. So the bewildered person just thinks in this way. Prabhupada writes here, who is superior to me? Who is bigger than me? Who is greater than me? And who is richer than me? And person who is simply engrossed like this is approaching the very durdhar age of life, that is the jara or old age. And therefore, it is very important to become progressively detached from the family life. So the entire Varanashram is so designed that one becomes educated, then one becomes cultivates attachment, responsibility, and then progressive detachment, purification all through the process, and then exit back home, back to Godhead, moksha. Right? So this is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. The cycle is being there. And Prabhupada says here, this detachment from the bodily activities will come by hearing of Krishna Katha. And especially in the age of Kali, hearing of Krishna Katha is the most effective means of developing, the supreme attachment towards the Lord. Kalau dosha nidhe rajan asti eko mahan gunah kirtanadeva krishnasya. So although Kali Yuga is dosha nidhi, it is the ocean of faults, there is this one great quality, asti eko mahan gunah. Age of Kali is full of sinful reactions, and people get more and more addicted to the sinful activities in the age of Kali. But hearing by Krishna Katha, one can get relief from all the miseries very easily, even in this age of Kali. Text 45. तान्वैः असद्वृत्तिभिरभीक्षाये पराहृतान् मनसः परेण न पश्यन्ति उरुगाय नूनम् ते पदन्यासविलासलक्ष्या. Translation.
O great Supreme Lord, offensive persons whose internal vision has been too affected by external materialistic activities cannot see your lotus feet, but they are seen by your pure devotees, whose one and only aim is to transcendentally enjoy your activities. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 18.61, the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. It is natural that one should be able to see the Lord at least within himself. But that is not possible for those whose internal vision has been covered by external activities. The pure soul, which is symptomized by consciousness, can be easily perceived even by common man whose consciousness is spread all over the body. The yoga system, as recommended in Bhagavad Gita, is to concentrate the mental activities internally and thus see the lotus feet of the Lord within himself, within oneself. But there are many so called yogis who have no concern with the Lord, but they are only concerned with consciousness, which they accept as the final realization. Such realization of consciousness is taught by Bhagavad Gita within only a few minutes, whereas the so called yogis take continuous years to realize it because of their offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord. The greatest offense is to deny the existence of the Lord as separate from the individual souls, or to accept Lord and individual soul as and the same one and the same. The impersonalists misinterpret the theory of reflection, and thus they wrongly accept the individual consciousness as the supreme consciousness. The theory of the reflection of the Supreme can be clearly understood without difficulty by any sincere common man. When there is a reflection of the sky on the water, both the sky and the stars are seen within the water. But it is understood that the sky and the stars are not to be accepted on the same level. The stars are part of the sky, and therefore they cannot be equal to the whole. The sky is the whole, and the stars are the parts. They cannot be one and the same. Transcendentalists who do not accept the supreme consciousness as separate from the individual consciousness are as offensive as the materialists who deny even the existence of the Lord. Such offenders cannot actually see the lotus feet of the Lord within themselves, nor are they even able to see the devotees of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord are so kind that they roam to all places to enlighten people in God consciousness. The offenders, however, lose the chance to receive the Lord's devotees, although the offenseless common man is at once influenced by the devotee's presence. In this connection, there is an interesting story of a hunter and Devarshi Narada. A hunter in the forest, although a great sinner, was not intentional offender. He was at once influenced by the presence of Narada, and he agreed to take the path of devotion, leaving aside his head and home. But the offenders, Nalakubir and Manigriva, even though living amongst the demigods, had to undergo the punishment of becoming trees in their next lives, although by the grace of a devotee, they were later delivered by the Lord. Offenders have to wait until they receive the mercy of devotees, and then they can become eligible to see the lotus feet of the Lord within themselves. But due to their offenses and their external materialism, they cannot see even the devotees of the Lord. Engaged in external activities, they kill the internal vision. The Lord's devotees, however, do not mind the offenses of the foolish in their many gross and subtle bodily endeavors. The Lord's devotees continue to bestow the blessings of devotion upon all such offenders without hesitation. That is the nature of devotees. Thank you, Prabhu.
Further, they are praying, O Supreme Lord, offensive persons whose internal vision has been too affected by the external materialistic activities cannot see your lotus feet. Although they are seen by your pure devotees, whose one and only aim is transcendentally enjoy your activities. Beautiful prayers and beautiful purports. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that Bhagavad Gita describes the Lord is situated in everybody's heart. Riddheshe Arjuna Tishtati. So the Lord is there in everybody's heart. So Lord is there means Lord lotus feet are also there in the heart of everybody. And this is what the entire point of this elemental demigods they are saying. Ishvara sarva bhutanam riddheshi arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. So the Lord is there in the heart of everyone. Lord's lotus feet are there in the heart of everyone. But the offender at the lotus feet of the Lord, who are the offenders? Srila Prabhupada is going to explain next. They cannot see the Lord's lotus feet, although they are in their own very hearts. And Prabhupada says another thing is, and the common man, because his consciousness is distributed all over everywhere, therefore they also again cannot see. The offenders of the Supreme Lord, they are primarily the offenses, they deny the existence of the Supreme Lord. That is the one. Second is, they will say, the Supreme Lord and the demigods, they all are one. They again becomes offender, pakhandi. Or the Lord and the Jiva, they are also one, and Jiva can become the Lord. Again, they become the pakhandi. And to propitiate their theory, they will say, just like there is a star and sky, and one will see the reflection, similarly, we are the reflection of original star and sky, and we are only that sky. But Prabhupada says, even in the reflection, sky is sky and the stars are stars. Right? There is one infinite sky, and there are innumerable stars maintaining their individuality within the vastness of the sky, even within the reflection. So similarly, the living entity never merges with the Supreme Lord, never becomes the Supreme Lord, is never equal to the Supreme Lord. And person who does this, they become at once become the offenders, although they may be jnani, and thus take huge time to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? Bahunam janmanamante jnanaman mam prapadyate. They take many, many lifetimes. Bahunam janmanamante. However, a devotee of the Lord, they will very quickly surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord because they are not offensive. And therefore, time and again, Lord Krishna uses this word to Arjuna, Anagha. Oh Arjuna, oh sinless one, oh unoffensive one. And Prabhupada says, because devotees are not offensive, they get realization from Bhagavad Gita very quickly within few minutes. Whereas the Gyani, because of the offenses they commit at the lotus feet of the Lord, they have to wait for the lifetimes for the same realization. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Further, Srila Prabhupada says, actually the offenders cannot see the lotus feet of the Lord within themselves. Neither they cannot see the Lord within themselves or the messengers of the Lord, devotees outside themselves. They will simply keep on offending and extending their term in the material existence. Right? But a common man, if he is not offensive towards the Supreme Lord or his devotees, can be very greatly influenced by the association of a devotee. And Srila Prabhupada gives example of Mrugari here. Mrugari was a hunter, extremely sinful person. Although he was sinful, he was not offensive. And therefore, when Narada Muni came across Mrugari, he was very immediately transformed. Whereas Nalakuvar and Manigriv, because they were offenders at the lotus feet of Narada Muni, they took prolonged period of time to realize the Supreme, and finally they were liberated. In the next life, they had to stand for 36,000 years as the trees with the full consciousness of the human being, got thus purified, and thus they were finally awarded bhakti. So this is because of their offenses. And Srila Prabhupada finally says, for the devotees of the Lord, they do not mind the offenses of the foolish people and unto themselves, and keep on distributing the blessings of devotional service without any hesitation. And this is the nature of a devotee like Narada Muni, Srila Prabhupada, and those who are following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.